Hello there everybody and welcome to a new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one I finally cooked up the most broken dark culture build that I could devise under the current circumstances. The wonderful part is it doesn't require the current DLC. Of course it is helpful if you have a one dragon army at your disposal, but it is totally not necessary for this one. So we're going to go over all the details and parts in this video. You got timestamps down below, and I want to start as usual with the culture and the race. So here I went for runesmiths. That's one thing I usually pick up, but it is exchangeable if you want to pick up something else. I think there are a couple of competitors that you could pick up, but I'll leave that to your discretion. I mean, unit enchantments are stupidly strong as of now, so we're going to keep going with this. The other thing is ritual cannibals, and I strongly recommend it for the dark culture if you want to have fun with them. That's two reasons. For one, the dark culture is really weak on support, and I didn't go in this build to support heavy. Although that is an option, it diluted the core of this faction for me too much. So here, corpse eating comes into play. You have a free action that heals your units. That's all you need for the early game. It stays useful through all the stages of the game. Being a free action, it's never a bad thing, and we have no other corpse interactions, so it's never not hurting us either. And the below part here is really powerful. So you gain mana and food per victory. Mana flows into your many unit enchantments and racial transformations that you require, and food lets your cities grow like crazy. This is cool because dark culture doesn't care about how large their cities will be. Their city stability, if it goes ever negative, it will not bother them. So it doesn't matter if you stuff these cities full with people, and that's really strong synergy. I really like that one. I haven't found anything that convinced me more over all stages of the game. Now, body and mind traits. We went for spider mounts, and I did a lot of thinking if wolves wouldn't be better, but no, wolves aren't better for this build. I'm going to go deeper into that over the course of the video, but the gist of it is the wolves only benefit the tier 3 Dark Knights from your faction to its full extent, because their bonus is melee only, and the other cavalry unit you get with the Darks is your tier 1 Archer, so that isn't too synergistic. The point-blank AoE weakening howl is really cool on paper, but in practice, your Dark Knights have better things to do. They would hit way harder than doing this howly thing, and your Archers, man, you don't want them at the front. It just doesn't work too well. So spider mounts are stupidly good. You got the web ability, which is just there for everybody. It powers up your tier 1 archers like crazy. Your dark knights suddenly have some sort of range attack utility, and it's just bonkers all over the game. The secondary trait, or mind trait, is Overwhelm Tactics. I stand to this because we need all the critical hit we can get for this build, because it is oh so awesome to crit. So we got that so far, so let's get on over to the tomes. I went here for an animal build, but a very special animal build. So therefore, we go for Tome of Beasts tier 1. Several reasons are cool in that regard. We get Animal Kinship, which powers up the importance of animal and cavalry units, making them basically supporty, because when you're standing right next to them, you gain extra damage and critical hit chance. The Wild Speaker is a free animal unit per fight. Really important because we're support heavy, support low, of course. We need those throwaway units quite badly. Also, comes with a spider. Nice, isn't it? Another AoE spitter. It's so bonkers. Apart from that, we have Summon Wild Animal, which will refill your army ranks, or fill up your army ranks early game and mid game quite decently, and Call of the Wild stays relevant through all stages of the game. It's so amazing to buff up the defense and offense of your animals and cavalries, because that will be like 80 to 90% of your army at some point. Mark as Prey, well, it isn't too much of a thing. I personally find this one the most underwhelming part of the book. Pack Leader. Really cool stuff. Don't forget to pick it up on your heroes. I strongly recommend supporty heroes for this build anyway, because here we pick up more critical hit chance, more damage bonus and flanking. Really good stuff. Wildlife Sanctuary, if you don't want to summon them, you can hire them at the city. That's all I can say about that. The other tier 1 tome I opted into is the Tome of the Horde. Several reasons spoke for that. We get a 20% damage increase via Spawnkin. That's for me the major sales point early on. But there are a couple of other things that I really liked about this book for this build. The Houndmaster comes again with a spider and a throwaway unit. So you have again a Warhound that you can just use at your will. And this guy comes with a decently strong range attack, and again he can spit webs. It's stupidly strong. And Summon Irregulars gives you another way of refilling your armies at the front. So with Summon Animals and Summon Irregulars, you don't need a city to refill your army. I mean, it's only low tier, but in the early game, that's stupidly powerful. Fury of the Horde and Blaze of the Horde are spells I don't recommend for this build too much, since we're not going too deep into the tier 1 craziness with this one. So Battle Seeker training, if you want to pick it up, it ain't bad, but because it really upgrades all the tier 1 units, but I didn't find it too important for the pickup. When we hit tier 2, it's up to you if you want to go for Amplification or Revelry first. It's a hard decision, and, well, I would personally say Amplification is better, but it really depends on your current situation. Let's start with Amplification. This book has something for everybody. I love it. Amplified Arrows does enhance your tier 1 archers into a really decent unit. We stack up a lot of critical hit. We have cavalry archers, therefore they get that 10% extra bonus. They are eligible for all the animal and cavalry bonuses in the build, so altogether they aren't as crazy as a high culture tier 1 archer unit, but seriously, they are hitting quite decently hard, and they apply weakness, which is amazingly important for your frontline units. Frenzying Focus enhances your supporters and battle mages in a really cool way, because, you know, it just is that little thing that keeps your supporters and battle mages useful in this build, because again, the warlocks are not your main sales point or your main part of the army, but they inflict again weakness, which is integral for your success with the army. So it powers up the backbone of these. And Astral Blood, here we go, more critical hit chance. You see where we're getting towards to, aren't you? So Amplify Minds is another cool thing for the Dark Culture, because we don't care about city stability at all. And, well, Amplification Pylon and Chain Lightning are the two spells that aren't too synergistic with this build, so feel free to skip them if you don't want to have them. So Spell Amplification here also is something that isn't too synergistic with this build, because we aren't on the nuke side of life. Resonance fields, yeah, I love it. It's more casting points. Try to slap one of them into each and every city that you can, because no downsides, only benefits. I love this one. So the other tier 2 tome, Revelry. So this one comes out of several reasons as a godsend. First of all, Blood Fury Weapons enhances all your animals and your frontliners, and this is really, really cool. It also increases morale, and it has a little bit of an extra physical bonus. It's just a little bit of everything. The Scald is the so much needed support unit for your army, but don't overestimate the healing power of this one. The Song of Revelry only adds 1 stack of regeneration, so it's only 6 HP per turn. You won't have burst healing or amazing supporty skills, but Song of Carnage is just what we are here for. It is, again, another damage steroid, and we have some crowd control on the Scald's basic attacks. I love these guys for that. Rebels of Carnage deserves a honorable mention here, because you have a lot of evolving animal units in your roster. This is really helpful. This gives you strong units for a penny if you play it right. Not too bad either. And Revel is hard. I love this one. 50% more morale from all sources. This is just more critical hits again. So, Revel's Triumph, please pick this up with this build. You are so biased towards critical hits, and you have shock units with amazingly high damage numbers. Get that triple-digit crits with this build, and this skill helps you a lot with it. Carnival of Flesh isn't so far interesting as it offers you a draft if you want to print out units at the cities, but there the interesting part of that thing ends. So, Tier 3, welcome to the Tome of Vigor. That's the point where you have actually won the game. Jokes aside, it's really that stupid. You're pretty much able to outplay the AI on every point of the game now with this book because of several reasons. First of all, you gain access to the Totem of the Wild, which spits out 3 throwaway units at your disposal, and if you can't pull this off 2 or 3 times during one fight, you just have a stupidly huge amount of units to chuck at the enemy without having to worry about them, and it's just that massive distraction. Summon Greater Animal gives you tier 3 and tier 4 units. This is just, so freaking easy. I think the spell might be even one of the most overpowered parts about this book, but it doesn't stop here. Unleash Beast transforms your animals and cavalry units into a monster. Really cool thing to put that onto your Dark Knights. You should really try that once in a while. And Empowered Beasts, well, this is just the thing for your animals to go bonkers. They gain a lot of damage, they gain a lot of HP, they gain the ability to destroy barricades and stuff. I love that. Supergrowth is the only thing that we have to say no to because we have already opted into Spawnkin, and that is mutually exclusive. But I discovered it doesn't matter. We're in for the damage, by all means. I mean, if you don't want to, you can skip Spawnkin and go for Supergrowth and have a little bit more beefy units. I'll leave that up to you. I just felt like Spawnkin had more of a oomphy effect in this build. Animal Handler, if you have it, pick it up, because, it's never a bad thing to have control immune animals and cavalries and resistance on top of that, so nothing shabby about that. And the other tier 3 tome I picked up for this build is Tome of Pandemonium, with a heavy competition of the other Chaos Tome. I'll go over that in a hot minute. So Pandemonium won the race. Why? Havoc magic adds in utility into all of your battle mages and supporters. This is that little extra they needed to be a pillar to stand on for your armies. So your battle mages now offer massive debuffs for the enemy. So do your supporters when they're not auto support. That's really, really good because that gives you, via Vessels of Chaos, again, up to 30% more damage. This is lovely. By the way, negative status effects are never a bad thing as long as they are on the enemy. They might disable or shut down the enemy entirely. So this combo is, again, virtually 30% more damage, and negative status effects are really easy to apply when you're relying on animal units. We have weakening on our native way, we have immobilization via the spiders, and lots of our animal friends can inflict bleeding, poisoning. We have so many ways on inflicting negative status effects that you will easily have the 20% on your attacks most of the time and 30% quite easily. It's not that hard with this build. Mass Hysteria is a nice disable. I love that one. It's costly, but it can be so good when you're fighting those 3-banner combats. And Chaos Eater is a hidden superstar in this build. Your Dark Knights explode super easy, and the Chaos Eater is one hell of a beast. You can send them in, and when you have debuffed the enemy enough, you just press Consume Chaos, and if you're lucky, they'll survive. If not, they have taken the enemy's fire on them, and your other units can keep wailing away on the enemy. The thing is, these guys can be summoned everywhere. Your Dark Knights and your city units not. So therefore these guys are really cool, and the longer you play with them, the more you get to get used to it, and they are better than they look at the first glance. And in this build I find them highly synergistic, because we can use that frontline Grenado, and since we have a lot of throwaway units, they don't explode that easily like in other builds. Really try them out with this build, they're amazing here. And Inside Revolution, yeah, just good stuff in general. So here, you don't need to pick up any other tomes anymore. Jokes aside, we can go totally into Tome of Paradise. It's an amazing one for this build, I highly recommend it to you. Gaia's Chosen transforms all of your dudes into plants and makes them resilient as hell. This is that little power-up that your units really can make good use of. Exhilarating pollen, morale bonus for us, distraction for the enemy. It's just stupidly powerful since you have probably picked up the flanker here, so you will have stupid amounts of extra damage on that one. And the other spells in here enhance your cities and enhance your healing capabilities and enhance your fortification capabilities. There's just good stuff everywhere. And I personally love Garden of Bliss a lot because it transforms excess food into mana, and food can at some points just grow useless. Also, the Garden of Bliss is city stability generating, so don't say no to that. And if you can, inspiring icon, again, more morale, so you will reach the maximum critical hit chance, wherever that might be currently, in no time. So, as your second tier 4 tome, you can also pick up for something from the Chaos Affinity. I really have a hard time deciding here. There's a lot of good things. You can pick up Chaos Channeling for Demonic Focus, powering up again your battle mages and supporters, but this is not too synergistic because we have Frenzying Focus already. So this one is only interesting for the Golden Horde. You could pick up Demon Gate, but I end up with the nature tomes a lot because, well, you know, Nature's Wrath is just so good. It gives you the ability to devolve an enemy unit, so that means either destroying them outright or stunning them, so yeah, they are prone. The Horn God is, again, the creator of more throwaway units. Who doesn't like that? Awakened Instincts goes on, gives all your units another go at everything, and, well, I don't use Destructive Regrowth or Awaken the Forest too much, but Awaken the Forest here again, here is a synergy because animals and plants again, and Goddess of Nature gives you, at the end of the day, the Force of Nature enchantment, which is again more critical hit chance, blight damage on base attacks, and since we went Gaia's Chosen, that goes on your entire army, so... When you let's go on over to the military part. When you're playing this, you should be aware of one thing. During the tier 1 phase, you aren't as powerful as you can be with other builds. I really think you aren't weak or anything, don't get me wrong, but the strongest phase begins when you have both of your tier 2 tomes active. But during the early game, you will make good use of your Pursuers, Dark Warriors, Houndmasters, and Wild Speakers. It's quite easy to dominate the battlefield because you have a lot of units to just waste away, and you have pretty decently hard-hitting archers in the backline. You have AoE in form of the Web Spitters, and the Dark Warriors hit like a truck. After a while, that is. When we hit tier 2 territory, pick up the Warlocks ASAP. They are wonderful complements for your army. Forget about the Night Guards, though, in this build. They are just not necessary at all. We fill all those slots that we would usually fill up with Night Guards. We use animals here because we're an animal build. So these guys, we don't have the weapon enchantments for them to make them shine, and they get just outclassed by all the other units that we pick up here. So when you can, with your animal units, try to pick up as many spiders, shock units, or whatever pleases you as you're at your own liking. I want to point out one thing. The wild animal summoning spell and the greater animal summoning spell, the animals you get will be dependent on the province you cast that spell. So forest provinces healed other animals, plains provinces, desert provinces, ice provinces. So try them out and check out what you like the most. I personally have no preference here because the animals, you should always deem them as your replaceable parts in this build. Tier 1 base units and animals. Why? Because Summon Regulars and Summon Wild Animal offers you permanent replacements of these at the battlefront. What you should always value are these units that can be only produced in cities, like the Houndmasters, the Wild Speakers, the Warlocks, the Dark Knights, the Scalds. These guys are hard to replace and therefore protect them. The other guys can easily die. Don't worry in this build about losses too much. I found that this build does very well at just throwing away parts of the army and just replacing them in the upcoming turns with new summons. The later you go into the game, the more battlefield summons you gain. Therefore, it lowers the amount of losses, but through all the stages of the game, everything that you can just re-summon on Battlefront, just let it die if it brings you any strategic advantage. When it goes down to the heroes, I want to point out how much I have learned to appreciate a restore spell on every single one of them. We are chronically low on support, like I said. This gives you a regenerative effect, but most importantly, you can cleanse off negative statuses from your units. You have 3 of them, ideally, in your army setup, and you can therefore cleanse out 3 army units or heal them up or whatever. I personally try to aim for as many summoning spells or supporting spells in this roster here with the signature skills. Mass Rejuvenation is amazing in this build, but so are summonings or other things that make your units stronger. Virulent Outbreak or other damage over time debuffs also serve a pretty good purpose. Altogether, you can overrun everything already when you have both of your tier 1 tomes, but when you're fighting against AI empires, I strongly advise you to wait until you have your tier 2 tomes, because everything becomes just so much easier from that point on. Basically, my military advice here is when you are in the tier 1 tome area of the game, go and conquer the areas around their city and brutalize the free cities around you, vassalize them or whatever, and after you have the tier 2 tomes, you can totally do the same to the AI enemies. Now, we're already a bit in the strategy part. This was practically the end of the military part. Let's talk strategy. Like I have already said, you are really, really well suited for warfare here, and I already summed up how to play the early warfare part. Try to get up your cities as fast as possible. That's the usual drill. If you have a dragon, it is as easy as that. Dragon goes that one direction, the other army goes the other direction, and off you go. I highly recommend you, if you want to do that, to save up your money early on and just recruit a hero, a second hero, and just don't mind the 30 gold you have to pay per turn. I have found very much success with that strategy, to have just a second hero as soon as possible for my early expansions. As you see here, this empire is quite solid for turn 50. We're about to get more cities into our empire right now, and everything works out really, really fine. Your economy part is extremely powerful in this build because your cities will grow on their own. And since we do conquer a lot of the nodes around us with ease, you will have a lot of an influx of materials here. I ended up maxing out the income of mana and gold as usual. Keep an eye on your town hall upgrades. With tier 2 town halls, negative city stability doesn't hurt you anymore, and the Overlord's Tower prevents that provinces fall off of your city when the city stability gets too low, but it also serves as a nice income building at the same time. Empire development skill-wise, as you see here, we are pretty widespread. The main focus of this build lies in Chaos and Shadow, but we also have a huge dip into nature, or let's say it's the 3 colors mostly. We get a little bit of Astral, but not too much, as you see, and most importantly, we have a nice add-in of Materium, but this is only runesmiths and my dragon. If you wouldn't play with a dragon, that would be only 1 point. So let's head on over it. Materium is again wonderful low point wonder. You gain military engineering, making the outposts stupidly powerful because they come with a work camp, and Master Masons makes your city structures less costly. I love that one. And Arcane Artisans. Try to build as many mines as you can with this build if you have it, because at some point this is such a nice way of earning mana. In the Shadow Tree, grab that knowledge extraction as fast as you can and then just slaughter heroes. It's a nice way of gaining knowledge. But apart from that, we gain also many ways of gaining knowledge here. The Shadow Tree provides also lowered unit upkeep for magic units. This becomes, this comes in handy later in the game more and more. And we also have a pretty nice diplomacy presence with Court of Whispers. And later down the road, where was it here? You can also put Whispering Stones in the... Ah, here, this one. You can also put Whispering Stones in already vassalized cities. This is massive. And Death Magic is... Well, what can I say? As long as you have mana, you're totally dominating the battlefield, because you can keep summoning those totems and whatever. It's stupidly powerful. I love this for this build so much. Then we got the Chaos Tree. The lower unit 1 tier, tier 1 unit upkeep is quite lovely. I do appreciate the battlefield looting as well. Here I didn't buy it because I have other priorities all the time, but it's a pretty good one. And apart from that, I really like the stuff that gives you bonuses for warfare. You can use that as your own at your own discretion. I just want to point out that you can gain units like crazy with this build. Lure of the Horde would provide, Call of Chaos would provide, and now we go over to the Nature Tree, where you can pick up units via Rite of the Guardian Spirit, and you can totally go crazy with Wild Expansion, which gives you animal units whenever you expand your city. So the amount of army you can allocate with this build is so satisfying. I can't put it into other words. You can grow your cities like crazy with a Nature Tree, and don't forget about Druidic Care later down the road. You gain mana like crazy with that one. So altogether, this build is extremely dominant in all stages of the game. The only part where I felt a little bit weak-ish was during the transition from Tier 1 to Tier 2 tomes, but that's mostly because units were dying a little bit much during that time. Overall, it took me a while to get used to the playstyle, but your playstyle revolves a lot around those shock units and critical hits. I just want to point out how hard these guys can hit. I've seen critical hits in or close to the triple-digit numbers, and the whole build is optimized towards shock units and heavy hitters. That's why I went for all the percentile bonuses and not so much for the number bonuses. And what can I say? I win most of the battles freely with auto-resolve, even risky ones, because the AI is able to pull this off quite decently. You have the relatively overpowered spider spitters everywhere, you have evolving units, you have battlefield refill. I don't know what I could have done better with the docks. I hope you guys like it, and we're gonna talk once a new update has hit town, if I can enhance on that. So I hope you liked it, and feel free to leave me your comments down below what you guys think what could be done better, because I am sure that I haven't scraped out the barrel completely. It's nearly impossible to do so in my humble opinion, so let me know what you guys thought. I really can recommend this build though. It is a massive hard hitter. So feel free to leave a thumbs up or a subscription. That would be totally amazing if you did, and have a wonderful day. And there's also a playlist down there to all the other Age of Wonders 4 stuff I did, so you might want to check that out. See you there, and have a wonderful day.